this day. Sometimes they want to know the results at the end of each day. Some of the best business people I work with calculated all of their sales and profits, gross and net, at the end of each business day, and they had the number ready. And they were set up to generate the numbers, and if you went to them at 3:30 in the afternoon, they've got the numbers to 3:30. The sales, profits, cost, net, gross, everything. And these people were the most profitable. Every one of them became millionaires. And in a business where almost everybody else went broke over time. Why? Because they were so fastidious about their numbers. Now, the third key word in success is concentration. And concentration, what we have discovered is that when you focus and concentrate on a single number or a single thing, on a single number you improve the number, on a single goal you actually activate your superconscious mind. Now, you've heard of the conscious mind, which is what we think with most of the time. The subconscious mind is like a great computer that accepts your commands and operates without thinking. It has no mind of its own. Then there is a third mind called the superconscious mind. This mind has been talked about throughout all of human history, and it contains every answer to every problem. It contains the steps necessary to achieve every goal. And here's the rule. Whatever you can hold in your mind on a continuing basis, you can have. Because the more you think about a goal that you want to achieve, the more the superconscious mind activates. The more energy you have, and the more ideas are generated. The reason people fail is because they think of many things all the time, but they don't think about one thing. And your ability to think about one thing is the key to great success. So let's do an exercise, and this is my favorite of all exercises on goal setting. And by the way, I mentioned in our sales seminar, I am the best-selling author on goals in the world in 22 languages. In fact, what happened after I wrote my book on goals, after teaching it for many years, is the publishers in New York just simply said, no more books on goals. The book has been written. And I've heard this through channels. They say somebody comes, I've got a book on goals. No publisher will publish a book on goals. They said, I'm sorry, it's already been written. Nobody can do better than Brian's book. And say, well, I've got a book on goals. Show me how it's superior to Brian's book. And they just go away. I have friends who teach goal setting. That's their whole life is goal setting. And they read my book and they said, this almost puts me out of business because there's more in this book than they've spent 20 years teaching and writing on goals. My goal is better. My goal book is better. And this is the essence. This is a small exercise, but this exercise is life-changing. I learned it many, many years ago. I applied it to my own life, and it transformed my life. And you apply it to your life, it will transform yours as well. So here it is. We say that focus and concentration on your most important goal releases ideas, energy, and personal power. It's called concentrated mind power. The more you focus on a single goal, the more energy and more creativity you have. And so the goal setting exercise, we say there are 7 components to setting and achieving goals. And I'll explain to you the 7 components, and then I'll take you through an exercise. Number 1, decide exactly what you want. This is the most important first step. 90% or more of people do not really know exactly what they want in each area of life. And here's the great danger. If I say to you, and you're all some of the smartest people in Tanzania, if I say to you, do you have goals? Everybody will say, of course I have goals. I'm an adult. I have goals. I have a car. I have a watch. I have a cell phone. I have goals. Oh, I say, really? Well, that's quite surprising because statistically, most people don't have goals. So, and I've been through this. So what are your goals? Well, I want to be happy. And I want to be rich. And I want to travel. And I want to have a nice home and marriage and children and be popular. Those are my goals. Well, crazy people in insane asylums that are under the care of serious hallucinogenic drugs in straitjackets in padded cells also have those goals. So failures have those goals as well, but they're not goals. What they found in an interesting study, I've talked about my book on how rich people think, how poor people think. Most rich people, 85 or more, have one big burning goal that they work on every single day. Only 3% of poor people have a goal, and they don't work on it very much. but the difference is enormous. Same level of intelligence, education, college, family, background, occupation, experience. But the ones that earn 10, 20, 50, 100 times as much are the ones that have a really big, clear goal. And they know exactly what they want. Now, what do we know about a result? Well, a result is clear, specific, measurable, written down, tangible, under your control, and something that a 6-year-old child can tell you how close you are to achieving. So when people say, I want to be rich and I want to be happy and I want to have a nice family, these are not goals. These are fantasies. These are wishes. These are hopes. These are illusions that crazy people have. I call these cigarette smoke goals. So if you take a cigarette, you go, and you blow it, and it just disappears in the air. It has no power, no force, no visibility. It creates nothing. So be specific and clear. Your goal should be so clear that a 6-year-old child could understand your goal. This is what Einstein said. And tell it to another 6-year-old child. And the other 6-year-old child would not only understand exactly what it is, but could tell you how close you are to achieving the goal. So when people say, I want to be happy and healthy and rich, these are meaningless goals, because how can a 6-year-old child determine how close you are? Step number 2 is write it down. Write it down, write it down, write it down. The fact is that all goals are written down. A goal that is not in writing is not a goal, it's a fantasy. And the most amazing thing happens between the head and the hand. When you write down a goal, it's astonishing what starts to happen. You see, everything that you handwrite, not type, but everything that you handwrite, you're actually handwriting into your subconscious computer. And the subconscious computer accepts this as a command and then begins working 24 hours a day to bring this goal into your life. And when I discovered this, I was 24 years old, and within 1 year I was earning 10 times as much as I was when I started. And this exercise is phenomenal. Write it down. Only 3% of adults have written goals, and everyone else works for them. 3% of adults with written goals, according to studies that were done at both Yale and Harvard, earn an average of 10 times as much as people in the same field without written goals, and they accumulate an average of 10 times as much over the course of their career as people without written goals. So written goals are very powerful. Number 3 is make it measurable. Make it measurable. I'm sorry. Number 2, write it down and make it measurable, and put a number next to it. Always put a number. And number 3 is set a deadline, and set sub-deadlines if necessary. Now, there is a goal-setting formula that is based in English on the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps are, first of all, it's personal, which means you always write a goal that starts with the word I. Second of all, it's present tense. So your second word is always an action verb. I earn, I weigh, I achieve, I live in, I accomplish, I sell. It's always as though it were a current fact. You never use the word will, because your subconscious mind can only record a command that is registered in the present tense. And the third thing is that it's positive. You don't say, I will quit smoking. You say, I am a non-smoker. You don't say, I will earn a lot of money, future tense. You say, I earn X number of dollars each year. Now, the third part of the deadline is put a date at the end of each goal. So you say, I weigh X number of kilos by this date. I earn this amount of money each year by December 31st, 2015. I drive this BMW car by August 31, 2016. Whatever it happens to be is always I achieve, present tense, by this date. This is the exact way that your subconscious mind can accept it as a command and then work on it 24 hours a day. Now, if it's a big goal and you repeat it over and over, your subconscious mind calls in the superconscious and says, look, we've got a big goal here. This person's really serious about it. We'll turn it over to you. And the superconscious then takes it and begins to solve every problem on the way to your goal. It begins to give you ideas and insights. And it is the seat of the law of attraction. So it attracts people and money and resources to help you achieve the goal. It's the most amazing power that you have, and you activate it with a clear written goal. This is why people who have clear written goals, rich people have big goals, and poor people don't. And poor people stay poor. They have the same talents and abilities, but they don't have written goals. So next is make a list. And you make a list of 3 different things. The first is all the problems and obstacles between you and your goal. The question we ask is always, what is holding you back from achieving your goal? And the second question we ask is, why aren't you already at your goal? What's stopping you? What is it in yourself or in your world that's holding you back? And what can you do to remove that? B is, what are the knowledge and skills that you will require? The rule is, to achieve a goal you've never achieved before, you're going to have to learn skills you've never had before. You're going to have to become better at a level that you've never been before. You cannot achieve anything more than you're achieving today at the same level that you are today. In order for you to achieve something bigger, you have to become bigger. Aristotle said the 3 critical factors of goals is be, do, have in that sequence. First of all, if you want to become a wealthy person on the outside, become a wealthy person in terms of knowledge, skill, and attitude on the inside. First, you must be the person that you want to be on the outside. Second of all, is you must then do the things consistent with achieving the goal. And then third of all, you will have what you want. So it's always be. I said before that your life only gets better when you get better. As a leader, your world, your business only gets better when you become better yourself. So C is people whose cooperation you will need. To accomplish anything worthwhile, you're going to need the cooperation of lots of other people. In our next session, we're going to talk about how you find the right people to work with you to help you to become successful. And your ability to choose people to work with is the critical determinant of your becoming a big success. You can never become a big success all by yourself. You've got to have people doing all the little jobs so that you can do the most important things. Number 5 is organize the list into a plan. Is organize it by sequence and create a checklist. What do you need to do first? What do you need to do second? What do you need to do third? And priorities. What is more important and what is less important? By the way, the checklist is what's going to make you rich and famous. People who write out a checklist and work from the checklist every day accomplish 5, 10, 50 times as much as people who have no checklist or driving through life with no roadmap. Number 6, take action immediately on your plan. Now you have a goal and a plan. And what you do is you do step 1. And take action immediately. Now here's the good news, is that you can always see the first step. Once you decide to achieve a goal, the first step appears in front of you. And when you take the first step, you'll see the second step and the third step. And then number 7 is do something every day that moves you towards your most important goal. Now this is a formula that I've developed by reading thousands of hours and practicing myself. And I've had people who've written one-year goals, as you're going to, and come back to me and said they'd have accomplished almost all of them within 7 days. Because all the powers of the universe are activated on your behalf when you have clear, specific, written goals that are programmed into your subconscious. A goal that you thought might take months or years to achieve, suddenly things start to happen in the most incredible speed. Give you a great story. I did my 2-day seminar in which I taught goal setting and put people through a much more complex process than this. And one of the gentlemen, his husband and wife were there, the gentleman was in sales and he wanted to double his income within the next 3 months. So he just wrote it down. What the heck, double my income. And then Monday morning he went into his company and they gave him the bad news. The company was not doing well and they were laying him off. And so he walked out of there Monday morning, no job. And he said, great seminar. I set a goal to double my income and now I'm unemployed. Wow. And later that week, his wife, Thursday, was shopping for groceries. She ran into a friend of hers from school. And they started talking and chatting. What are you doing now? Well, my husband and 2 of his partners have started a new business. And, we said, great, well, how's it going? She said, well, there's just one problem. They're really trying to find a good salesman. They need a good salesman for this business. And she said, well, my husband's in sales. She said, will he come and speak to my husband and interview for the job? And she said, absolutely. He went in on Friday, got along well. He was exactly the right person with the right experience for this new company. They hired him. He started on Monday. Within 60 days, he was earning twice as much as he'd ever earned in his life. And he looked back and he said, if I hadn't set the goal and then got fired, I wouldn't have had this job. If I'd stayed at that old job, I could never have earned twice as much. In honesty, looking back, they could never have paid me twice as much. He changed his whole life. Now, there's a reason I tell you this, and because this is what happens. It's sort of like a rocket that starts to go all over the place when it's a misfire. When you set a big goal and you write it down, your life will suddenly start to go in remarkable directions. Amazing things will happen. People will call you. You'll read something. Someone will hand you a book or make a comment. The most amazing things will happen in your life, and they're all part of a pattern that is leading you toward the goal and bringing the goal toward you. You have only one responsibility: clarity, focus, and concentration. Well, that's 3. But the most important thing is clarity. Be clear about what you want. So please open up your page here, and what I want you to do is write down 10 goals that you would like to achieve in the next 12 months. Write down 10 goals that you'd like to achieve in the next 12 months. Now, these may be a 1-week goal. You may want to achieve a goal within a week or a month or 3 months or 6, but the ultimate deadline is 12 months. Write down 10 goals you'd like to achieve. No talking. Write down the 10 goals as quickly as possible. If you don't write down 10 goals, you don't get to take a break. You have to stay here until you've written down 10 goals. And I'm going to come around and check. So your job is to hire carefully. So we say how to hire. Think through the job carefully. Remember, thinking is the most important and valuable work that you do. And the rule is think on paper. Think on paper. Think on paper. Is write down the results that are expected of this job. Write it down, write it down, write it down. What will we want this person to achieve? And then second of all, what skills and education and experience will this person need to have in order to do the job that you want done? And number C is personality attributes. What kind of a person are you looking for? Now, surprisingly enough, C turns out to be the major reason for success or failure. Is fit. It's called fit. Is the number one reason that people are fired is because they don't fit in with the business. And this is actually true right up to the chairman of the board, or I'm sorry, to the president of the company. So the main reason that presidents of Fortune 500 companies are fired by the board is because of lack of fit. They don't have the personality that fits in with the company and with the other people there. So think through the job. Now I'm going to give you, write out the job description and idealize in as much detail as possible. What you do is you say, imagine that you could find the perfect person for this job. So just take a sheet of paper and write down what would be the description of the perfect person. And imagine that there is a perfect person factory. And this factory manufactures perfect people. And so your job, clarity, is to write down a description, like an order form, for the perfect person, and then mail it to the factory, and the factory will send you back the perfect person for the job. Remember, writing maketh an accurate man or woman. So when you write it down, you think with much greater clarity. And it is astonishing how much better hires you will make if you write down the description. So write down, I want them to be able to do this and do this and do that and do that and do this and this. I want the person to be a non-smoker and live within 5 kilometers of the office. I want the person to have this education, background, experience, age, weight, habits, this kind of success. And just write it down, write it down, write it down, write it down. And I remember doing this because I teach it. I remember I needed a vice president to head up the marketing for a new division of my business. And so I sat down with a piece of paper and I wrote down 32 things the perfect candidate would have. A week later, somebody called me out of the clear blue sky, said he had worked for a company that worked for me in the past. He had just finished a major job. He had just moved back into town and he was wondering if there was an opening for him at my company. Well, I hear this a lot, so I said, well, sure, come in. I'll talk to you for half an hour and we'll see. He came in and sat down. We spent 3 hours together. This guy was perfect. He was absolutely perfect. And later, I hired him, and when I hired him and put him to work, he turned out to be so good. I mean, it was just amazing. After about a month, I pulled out my list that I'd had, and I said, before I hired you, I made a list of all the things I wanted in a perfect person. So here's a copy. Let's go through this list just for fun. So I sat down, and we went through this list, and he had all 32 qualities plus 4 more qualities I hadn't even thought of. He was fluent at designing computer marketing programs, which I didn't even know about. He was fluent at 2 computer languages. He was fluent at online marketing, stuff I didn't even have the sense to write on the page. He had all 32 plus 4 more. Unbelievable. We went through it. We just laughed. Even to this day, I still remember. His name was Carl. And he worked for me for 2 years, and he did a fabulous job before he moved on and started his own business. My point is that when you write it down, your chances of getting the perfect person go up by 10 or 20 times. It is all in your head, in your head. There's no way you can make a good choice. There's no way you can make a good choice. It's like going to the grocery store without a list and just wandering around and say, oh, yeah, I need that. Oh, yeah, I need that. And just wandering around. Anyway, so we say write out the job description in detail, and then we say cast a wide net. Is hand out this list to as many people as you know. Hand out to everybody in the office and say we're looking for someone like this. This, by the way, is how I found my internet expert. Because after all of these problems, I asked everybody in my office, does anybody knows anything about the internet? Setting up an internet-based business. And my executive assistant said, well, I know 2 or 3 people who have just gone through the .com .bomb explosion, and they're looking for work. They're very experienced in internet business. And so all 3 came in. We had a great conversation, and we said, let's get together later. And then one of them came back and said, I can build a business for you. I know exactly what you need. He's been my partner for 15 years. He's generated millions and millions of dollars worth of sales. He's helped us to build by putting together a team, one of the best, maybe the best single website for professional speakers in the world. At least that's what everybody says, worldwide. And we sell and sell and sell. We make more money in a month from that site than many people make in 5 years. And when we started off, we were doing $1,200 a month. And now we do $250, and we're on track to do $300. We've done $300 a couple of times, which we're on track to hit $300 consistently. Then $400. By next year, they plan to be at $500,000 a month, which is good. In case you were wondering, that's good, especially since it's all digital products, so it has no product cost. So there's a lot of profit in there. There's a lot of profit. A lot of profit. So tell lots of other people that you're looking for someone. That you're looking for someone for this job. And if you have a written description, give them the written description. Say, do you know anybody who fits this description? And number 7, the interviewing process. When you interview a person, and you need to be disciplined. There's a rule in hiring people that says, don't start selling until you decide to buy. Don't start selling until you decide to buy. What most young entrepreneurs do is they interview a person and they tell this person all the wonderful things about my business and all how business is growing, the product and this, and you're selling already. Don't sell because you haven't decided to buy yet. What you do is you want to ask a lot of questions until you decide, hey, this is a good person. Then you start to tell them and you start to explain to them the company and the business and the potential. So, A, look for achievement history. Peter Drucker says the only predictor of future performance is past performance. So therefore, ask them what they have done in the past and focus in on this like a laser beam. What was your first job? What did you like about that? What was your most recent job? What jobs have you had? What are your best skills? What kind of work makes you the happiest? Keep focusing in to find out what they've done well in the past. Look for a sense of urgency. A sense of urgency is when the person is very eager to start the job. In a study of 30,000 employees conducted by Deloitte Touche and Tomasco, perhaps the biggest accounting firm in the world, they found that the two predictors of high performance 10 years after they were hired were, number one, they had a sense of urgency. They listened and they looked at you and they said, I want this job. I want to work here. I really want to work here and I want to start now. And I want to start now. So the two factors were they wanted to work there and they wanted to start immediately. If ever you interview anybody and they say, well, and you say, well, if I offered you this job, when would you be prepared to start? They say, well, I don't know. I have to think about it. I have to talk it over with my spouse. I want to take a month off and go on vacation for a while, and I'm not sure. Whenever they give you that sort of stuff, red alert, red alert, red alert. This person's going to be a deadhead if you hire them. Don't hire them. The person must be so eager for the work. I'll give you an example. I hired an executive assistant. My assistant, Shirley, worked with me for 11 years, then got married and moved away. So I had to replace her. So I had Shirley help me to replace her. By the way, whenever someone is leaving, make them responsible for finding the replacement. You'll be astonished how good they are. They know exactly what the person needs to be able to do. They're much tougher judges than you are. They have much better insights. So whenever somebody leaves, I say, of course you can leave, but could you please help us find your replacement? It's amazing, amazing technique. And so Shirley would interview several people, and she said, I think I found the right one. So she said, you can now interview them. What they do is they sort them out, and they send me the one that they've selected, my staff. And so this is Judy. She sits there, and very good, very skilled, nice personality, great. And I said, well, if I were to offer you this job, when would you be prepared to start? She said, well, I have to give 2 weeks' notice at my existing company because that's my agreement, but I would be willing to work evenings and weekends for free to learn the business and get started right away. Yeah, wow. Do you think I hired her? I hired her and she worked for me for 4 years until she had her third child and had to leave. But she wanted to start now. She'll work evenings. She'll work free. She'll work on the weekends. She wants to start now. She wanted this job. And she turned out to be excellent. She did great work and everybody loved her. So look for intelligent questions. Do you know the interesting thing is, and I put you at tables, by the way, for a lot of reasons, what they found is that the greatest single correlation for success is creativity. Successful people are more creative than unsuccessful people. And the greatest demonstration of creativity is curiosity. And the greatest demonstration of curiosity is intelligent questions. So the more questions a person asks, the smarter they are. If they don't ask any questions, it means they're not very smart. And they're hoping to get by, and nobody will catch them. So whenever I tell people in a meeting, if you sit here in a meeting and you don't ask any questions or say anything, then we assume that you are not very smart and you have nothing to contribute. And they say, oh no, I was just listening to the others. We assume that you have nothing to contribute and you're not very smart. I'll say, oh, well, that's the case. So now I put you at tables, and you'll find the smartest people at every table ask the most questions. Absolutely, that's the measure. It's like the temperature in a room. That's the measure of IQ, is asking the most questions. If you don't ask questions, it means you're probably not very smart, because you're not creative, you're not curious. So it's just a little thing to remember when we do another exercise. And the rule of three. Now the rule of three, this is worth the price of the course. I have taught this to Fortune 500 companies and probably 10,000 others. Many companies come back and say this became a law in their company, not just the rule of three, became the law of three, and everybody in the company is required to use it. If they don't use it, then they're in serious trouble with their superiors. And the rule of three is something that I developed. And it says this: Before you hire anybody, interview at least 3 people for the job. Even if you like the first person a lot, still interview 2 more people. Now, sometimes people say this, well, what if you can't find, 3 people to interview? It means that the job is wrong. Is you have misdescribed the job, so it's requiring that the person do too much, or you're not paying enough. Because if the job is the right job and you're paying enough, you'll have a whole lineup of applicants. If you don't have a lineup of applicants, it's not the applicant's fault, it's your fault. The job is too confusing. Many people make this mistake is they try to hire somebody to do 2 jobs which are mutually contradictory or incompatible. When I was a young man, I started a division to import Japanese automobiles from Japan. We imported and sold $50 million worth of vehicles. I had to set up dealerships, I had to set up warehouses, shipping, financing, trucks, everything else. Great experience. And so I hired a guy, and his job was to go out and be the salesman. He was a great salesman, and go out and call on dealerships and sell them vehicles, which they would then sell and so on. But he also had to do the paperwork, which is to fill out the detailed paperwork and application and credit applications and financing and background checks and everything else. And he hated that work, and he did it poorly. And the work kept him away from selling. And if he was doing if selling work, he couldn't do the paperwork. And I realized, oh my God, a great salesman is terrible at paperwork. So I hired another person to do the paperwork. When he set up a dealership, this person would go and do all the paperwork. He loved paperwork. He loved detailed work. He was very accurate and very personable. And so I split the job into 2 parts. You just do selling. You just do paperwork and contracts with the client. And you know what? The business boomed. Even the Japanese said they'd never seen a distribution organization so successful so fast. And the reason was because I split the jobs. So sometimes they say that very often you're having a person try to do 2 jobs, and if they do one, they can't do the other, and if they do the other, they can't do one. And the key is to split the job into 2 separate jobs. All companies eventually learn that. They keep splitting the jobs into smaller and smaller pieces so that there's only 3 critical components, and the person is excellent at each of the 3 and then works on those big 3 all the time. Okay. So interview at least 3 people, by the way, coming back. And no matter how good they look, some companies will interview 25 for a low-level job. But remember, this is the starting point. The most important thing you do is select the right people. Number 2, if you like a person, interview them at least 3 times. The person that looks good the first time may look average the second time, may look terrible the third time. And I've had this experience many times. People are on their very best behavior in the first interview. The second interview, they sort of let down their hair a little bit. The third interview, it all comes out. And this, geez, this person is terrible. The person I was going to hire first. Hewlett-Packard has a very interesting hiring system. If you apply for a job at Hewlett-Packard, you have to go through an exhaustive application process. Tests of all kinds, background checks, and so on. And then you get a chance to be interviewed by a live person. So you are interviewed by 4 managers, 4 separate interviews. And then the managers say, well, what do you think? All 4 managers have to agree that this looks like a good candidate. Then you go through a team interview where you'll be interviewed by all 4 managers. Then you'll go through another interview where one of the managers will interview you again based on the team interview. And then they'll say, everything's going well. So far, it's all thumbs up. They'll say, why don't we go for dinner? We'd like to invite you and your spouse or significant other out for dinner to a nice restaurant. And the candidate thinks, aha, I got the job. And so they set up reservations, and they take you out to a beautiful restaurant, and there's beautiful food and wine or whatever you like, and they're very sociable and personable and so on. And the candidate doesn't realize this is the 7th interview. This interview determines whether they get the job or not. And so the person is relaxed, they have some wine, they're rude to the waiter, they interrupt or contradict their spouse, they spill stuff, they eat with their hands rather than with a knife or fork. They think, hey, I've got it. And they don't realize this is the final interview. And so then afterwards, all 4 have to get together again, and they all have to give 100%. Yes, we want this person. So they have a minimum of 7 or 8 interviews. Some companies more than that. But at the very least, don't hire a person with less than 3. Now, number 3 is interview in 3 places. Just like they take people out for dinner, they interview them in an office, they interview them in a boardroom or a meeting room, they take them across the street for coffee. If you ever want to see a transformation, take a person in your who you're interviewing in your office, say, let's go across the street for a cup of coffee or lunch. Take them across the street, and that person will be a totally different human being. And the person that you saw in the office is not the person that you're talking to over lunch. We call this the chameleon complex. Those people actually change their colors and their behavior when you move them around under different lights. And then number 4 is have 3 other people interview the candidate. And so if you like the person, and my office is all set up for this, by the way, and if you like the person, then have somebody else interview them, and then have somebody else interview them. And what we now do is I take a person who I've interviewed,